Do you find yourself constantly battling fatigue, even after a full night's sleep? Or perhaps you're struggling with weight that just won't budge, no matter how little you think you're eating. It's a common complaint, and again, it's so easy to just sigh and say, "Well, I'm not as young as I used to be." But what if the real culprit isn't your age, but a metabolic switch that's been stuck in the store fat position, largely thanks to sugar? Here's how it often works. You consume sugar or refined carbohydrates, your blood sugar spikes, and your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is to usher that glucose into your cells for energy. However, when we consistently bombard our system with sugar, our cells can become resistant to insulin's message. This is insulin resistance, which we'll talk more about soon. When insulin is high, it also sends a very clear signal to your body: store fat. It essentially locks your fat cells, preventing them from releasing their stored energy. So you're eating, but your body isn't efficiently accessing its own vast energy reserves. Instead, it relies on the quick, short-lived energy from the sugars you're consuming. When that wears off, you crash, feel hungry again, and the cycle continues. You end up feeling tired because you're not tapping into sustained energy, and you gain weight because your body is in constant fat storage mode. Now picture this. You reduce your sugar intake. Your insulin levels begin to normalize. That constant store fat signal quiets down. Suddenly, your body can start to unlock those fat cells and use that stored energy for fuel. This is a game changer. Instead of relying on the fleeting rush from sugar, you're tapping into a much more stable, long-lasting energy source. The result? That persistent fatigue can start to lift. Your energy levels become more even throughout the day, without those dramatic peaks and crashes. And because your body is no longer in a state of emergency fat storage, you might find that managing your weight becomes less of an uphill battle. Many people are astonished to find they have more energy and less hunger when they cut back on sugar. Isn't that a fascinating paradox? We all want a healthy heart, right? It's the engine that keeps us going. Doctors talk about blood pressure, cholesterol, and triglycerides, and we diligently go for our checkups. But did you know that sugar can be a significant, often overlooked stressor on your cardiovascular system? Many people associate heart problems primarily with dietary fat, but the story is far more nuanced. When you consume excess sugar, your liver works overtime to process it. Some of it gets converted into triglycerides, a type of fat that circulates in your blood. High triglycerides are a known risk factor for heart disease. Furthermore, a high sugar intake can contribute to inflammation throughout your body, including in your blood vessels. Inflamed blood vessels can become stiffer and narrower over time, which can lead to high blood pressure and make your heart work harder to pump blood. Think about it. If your pipes are narrowed and less flexible, the pump has to exert more force. It's a similar principle with your heart and arteries. Excess sugar can also play a role in altering your cholesterol profile, often leading to lower levels of good HDL cholesterol and sometimes an increase in bad LDL cholesterol, particularly the small, dense LDL particles that are more prone to lodging in artery walls. But here's where it gets really interesting and hopeful. When you decide to significantly reduce your sugar consumption, you're taking a direct load off your cardiovascular system. With less sugar for the liver to process into triglycerides, those levels can start to come down. As systemic inflammation decreases, your blood vessels may become less stiff, potentially leading to improvements in blood pressure. Many individuals who make this dietary change are pleasantly surprised at their next doctor's visit when they see their heart health markers moving in the right direction. Imagine the relief of seeing those numbers improve, not necessarily through more medication, but through a conscious choice about what you put on your plate. Could a sweeter life actually mean a less sugary diet for your heart? Your liver is an absolute workhorse, performing hundreds of vital functions, from filtering toxins to producing bile for digestion. But just like any diligent worker, it can become overwhelmed if its workload is consistently too high. And one of the biggest culprits for overwhelming the liver in modern diets, you guessed it, sugar, particularly fructose. Unlike glucose, which can be used by most cells in your body, fructose is almost exclusively processed by the liver. When you consume large amounts of fructose, your liver has to convert it into fat. Over time, this fat can accumulate in and around the liver cells, leading to a condition called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's non-alcoholic because it's not caused by excessive alcohol consumption, but by diet. Many people with NAFLD have no symptoms, especially in the early stages, which is why it's often called a silent disease. You might be thinking, well, I don't drink much, so I'm probably fine. But if your diet is high in processed foods, sugary drinks, or even lots of fruit juices, your liver could be silently accumulating fat. Over time, NAFLD can progress to more serious liver inflammation, cirrhosis, and even liver failure. It's a sneaky condition because you often don't feel it until significant damage has occurred. You might notice unexplained fatigue, a dull ache in your upper right abdomen, or your doctor might pick up on elevated liver enzymes during a routine blood test. Here's the truly amazing part. Your liver has an incredible capacity for regeneration. If you remove the offending agent, in this case, excess sugar, the liver can begin to heal itself. As you reduce your sugar intake, the liver is no longer forced to produce and store as much fat. The accumulated fat can gradually decrease, inflammation can subside, and liver function can improve. It's like giving that overworked employee a much-needed vacation and a chance to catch up and repair. Many studies have shown that dietary changes, particularly reducing sugar and refined carbohydrates, can significantly improve or even reverse NAFLD. Isn't it empowering to know that such a vital organ can recover if we simply give it a break from the sweet onslaught? As we get older, it's natural for our immune system to not be quite as robust as it was in our youth. We might find ourselves catching colds more easily or taking longer to recover from them. But what if our dietary choices, especially our sugar consumption, are further weakening our body's natural defenses? Think of your immune system as your body's highly sophisticated army with white blood cells as the soldiers on the front lines. Research has suggested that high sugar intake can temporarily impair the function of these white blood cells, making them less effective at fighting off bacteria and viruses. Some studies have shown that after consuming a sugary meal or drink, the ability of certain immune cells to engulf and destroy pathogens can be reduced for several hours. Imagine your army suddenly becoming sluggish and less responsive right when you need them most. Beyond this acute effect, a diet chronically high in sugar contributes to systemic inflammation. While acute inflammation is a normal and necessary part of the healing process, chronic low-grade inflammation can disrupt the delicate balance of the immune system. It can lead to a state where your immune system is constantly on alert, but not functioning optimally, sometimes even turning against the body's own tissues, which is a factor in autoimmune conditions. Now, consider what happens when you reduce the sugar load on your system. You're essentially giving your immune soldiers a chance to regroup and function more effectively. By minimizing those sugar-induced slowdowns and reducing chronic inflammation, you're creating an internal environment that is more supportive of a strong, balanced immune response. While it's not a magic bullet, many people report experiencing fewer common illnesses or recovering more quickly when they make this dietary shift. It's about removing an obstacle that might be hindering your body's natural ability to protect itself. Could fewer sick days be one of the unexpected benefits of breaking up with sugar? Do your knees creak when you climb stairs? Do your hips ache after sitting for a while? Does morning stiffness make those first few steps out of bed a slow, careful process? For so many seniors, joint pain and stiffness are just accepted as an inevitable consequence of wear and tear over the years. And while it's true that cartilage can wear down and joints can age, what if there's a dietary factor that's pouring fuel on the inflammatory fire, making those aches and pains worse than they need to be? Sugar is a well-known pro-inflammatory agent. When you consume it, it can trigger the release of inflammatory messengers called cytokines. If your diet is consistently high in sugar, you're essentially keeping your body in a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation. Where does this inflammation often settle? You guessed it, in your joints, particularly those that may already have a bit of arthritis or previous injury. This inflammation can lead to swelling, increased pain, and reduced mobility. It's like having a small, smoldering fire in your joints, and every sugary snack or drink is like tossing another small piece of kindling onto it. Over time, that constant irritation can really take a toll on your comfort and your ability to enjoy daily activities. But what happens when you remove the kindling? When you significantly reduce your sugar intake, you can help to dial down that systemic inflammation. As the inflammatory signals lessen, the pressure and irritation in your joints can begin to ease. Tissues that were aggravated can start to calm down. Many people report a noticeable reduction in joint pain and stiffness when they cut out sugar. That morning, stiffness might become less severe, or you might find you can walk further or stand longer with less discomfort. It's not about reversing decades of wear and tear overnight, but about reducing the inflammatory burden that might be exacerbating your symptoms. Imagine waking up with a little more ease, moving a little more freely. Could it be that relief for your joints starts not in the medicine cabinet, but in your pantry? We've touched on insulin resistance before, but it's so central to many of these issues that it deserves its own spotlight. Think of insulin as the key that unlocks your cells to let glucose in for energy. When you consistently consume a lot of sugar and refined carbohydrates, your pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin to try and manage the glucose load. Over time, your cells can become less responsive to insulin's signal. It's like they've changed the locks, and the insulin key doesn't work as well anymore. This is insulin resistance. When this happens, your pancreas tries to compensate by producing even more insulin. So now, you have high levels of both glucose and insulin circulating in your blood, which is a recipe for trouble. Insulin resistance is a major driver behind type 2 diabetes, but its ill effects don't stop there. It's linked to weight gain, high blood pressure, unfavorable cholesterol levels, and even, as we've seen, fatty liver disease and increased inflammation. It's a metabolic disturbance that can have far-reaching consequences for your overall health. You might feel constantly tired despite eating, experience intense cravings for sugary or starchy foods, or find it incredibly difficult to lose weight. These are often silent signals that your body is struggling with insulin resistance. The truly empowering news is that insulin resistance is often highly reversible, especially through dietary changes. When you dramatically reduce your intake of sugar and refined carbohydrates, you give your pancreas a break. Insulin levels can start to come down. Your cells, no longer constantly bombarded by high insulin, can begin to regain their sensitivity to its signal. It's like giving the locks a chance to be reset so the key can work properly again. As your insulin sensitivity improves, your body becomes much more efficient at managing blood sugar. Those wild swings can level out. Your energy can become more stable. Those intense cravings can diminish. And your risk for developing many chronic conditions associated with insulin resistance can significantly decrease. It's a profound shift towards restoring your body's natural metabolic balance. Isn't it incredible to think that by changing what you eat, you can help your body's own systems work the way they were designed to? We've walked through 7 significant ways that reducing sugar can positively impact your health, from clearing your mind to soothing your joints and rebalancing your metabolism. It's a lot to take in, but the overarching message is one of hope and empowerment. These aren't just theories. These are changes that countless individuals have experienced. Taking a 30-day break from sugar isn't about deprivation. It's about discovery. It's an opportunity to see how your body responds when it's not constantly dealing with the effects of excess sugar. You might be truly surprised by how much better you can feel. The journey might have its challenges, especially in that first week as your body adjusts. But the potential rewards, more energy, clearer thinking, less pain, and a greater sense of well-being, are immense. Remember, your age is not a barrier to positive change. Your body has an amazing capacity to heal and rebalance if given the right conditions. Small, consistent steps can lead to profound transformations. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Having heard all this, what's one thing that stood out to you, or one change you might consider making? Sharing your thoughts can inspire others, and we can all learn from each other on this journey. If this discussion has been helpful, please leave a comment with a 1. If there's something you'd like us to explore differently, a 0 is fine too. Your feedback truly helps us create content that serves you best. And of course, if you found value in this, please give the video a thumbs up, share it with someone you think might benefit, and make sure you're subscribed to our channel for more insights into living your healthiest life. Thank you so much for watching. And here's to making informed choices that allow you to live fully and vibrantly on your own terms.